Hello and welcome to the Sleepless Physicist. You lie in darkness, yet the darkness is softer than velvet. A hush so gentle, it feels like breath resting on your cheek. Your pillow cradles the curve of your neck, holding you as a secret keeps its own name, and inside that stillness a faint tone shimmers, steady, unwavering, lighter than silence itself. It hangs in the air like the ghost of a lullaby, neither music nor whisper, simply the first tremor of awareness that tonight will be different. You sense words before you hear them, as though the air around your ears has chosen to exhale meaning. Your name arrives on that exhale, threaded through with warmth, spoken so quietly it barely touches sound. The utterance is more an invitation than a greeting, a promise that whatever follows will hold you with equal care. In that almost word you feel safety gather, a cocoon spun from trust alone. Time loosens its grip, the way an unknotted ribbon slides free of a gift. You are not falling asleep. You are slipping backward, past ticking hands and scheduled mornings, past everything that ever asked you to hurry. Behind you stretches a corridor of unmapped hush, in which clocks have no purchase, and forward there is only this moment, quivering like dew on the lip of dawn. You hover at the lip, breath suspended, sensing the pull of something older than breath. The tone deepens, scarcely perceptible, yet inside your chest, a resonance answers it. You notice your heartbeat slowing, synchronizing with a rhythm that feels less like a pulse than like the pause between tides. Each beat whispers the same message. You are allowed to drift. A subtle warmth fills your palms, spreads to your wrists, reaches your shoulders like water flooding a quiet harbor. This warmth, too, carries meaning. Here, motion is optional, vigilance unnecessary. You may try to name the stillness, but every word dissolves before taking shape, like frost melting at sunrise. The mind, eager for labels, briefly protests. Then it too stretches out, languid, content to feel instead of define. What color is hush? What shape does serenity choose when nobody is looking? Questions flicker, curious fireflies, yet even their glow seems content to fade. Your eyelids become translucent screens upon which unseen dreams begin to project themselves. Images roll in slow, languid arcs, perhaps a silver river sliding beneath moonlight, perhaps a field of wheat sighing under midnight wind. They require no narrative, no coherence, only the gentle certainty that beauty persists even where eyes cannot follow. You feel the rise and fall of your chest as if it were the swell of distant oceans, ancient yet immediate, carrying you inward. Somewhere within that ocean of calm, an idea stirs, the notion that silence itself may contain stories, that emptiness is not lack but canvas. You sense the first stroke upon that canvas, delicate, deliberate, seem an inkling that the universe, before it breathed stars, might have rested in a cradle of perfect quiet. And if quiet could cradle creation, then perhaps quiet can cradle you now, safe as an unspoken wish. A faint thrill ripples along your spine, not excitement, but recognition, as if a half-forgotten lullaby has returned to claim its chorus. The air cools around your face, tinged with a scent you cannot name, a fragrance reminiscent of early dawn when the world holds its breath before birds announce morning. That fragrance weaves into the tone, into the heartbeat lagoon within your chest, uniting sense with sense until boundaries blur. Words gather again, slow and deliberate, offering a simple realization. You are not journeying outward toward answers, but inward toward questions, the kind that rest at the root of wonder. Each question is a petal unfolding in darkness, soft, luminescent, asking nothing but your willingness to behold it. And so you behold, and in beholding you drift deeper, trusting that the path behind your closing eyelids is wide enough for mystery to unfold without haste. Somewhere beyond the quiet pulse of your own veins, You sense a frontier where measurement falters, a boundary so subtle it slips between the ticks of any clock that ever dared to count. Scholars with chalk and supercomputers call it the Planck curtain, but tonight that name feels too sharp, too bright. Instead, imagine it as a silk threshold woven from pause and possibility, floating just ahead of your closing gaze. You drift toward it without effort, carried by the hush that bloomed the moment you surrendered to stillness. On one side of that threshold lies everything familiar: the weight of blankets, the faint hum of distant circuitry, the comfortable architecture of hours and minutes. On the other side, no time, no distance, only the shimmer of could-be. You hover like river mist between shores, neither compelled to cross nor asked to remain, simply invited to notice how boundary itself flickers, how definitions soften when observed through half-dreaming eyes. A thought arrives, unannounced yet gentle, perhaps before the first particle stirred. Silence experimented with flavors of being. Maybe it tasted darkness, seasoned with expectation, emptiness tinged with yearning. You can feel those flavors now, subtle as lavender in spring air, twining through your breath. They whisper that nothingness is not a void to be feared, but a cradle spacious enough to hold every future heartbeat, including yours. You recall a childhood evening when you stood beneath a sky untouched by city glow, stars pouring across blackness like grains of sugar on slate. Then you knew awe without needing to name it. Tonight that feeling returns, distilled to its essence, yet amplified, not countless stars, but the potential for stars, not the vast night, but the breath that preceded night itself. A hush older than hush extends an unseen hand, and you realize that hand has always rested just beneath your sternum, guiding the tempo of each inhale. Questions form and dissolve like soap bubble constellations. Where did the hush come from? What sings beneath its soundless surface? You do not chase answers. You let them drift away, phosphorescent motes in a tidal pool of thought. Each departure leaves behind a widening stillness, and within that widening you find yourself expanding, as if ribs could open like cathedral doors to admit the cosmos entire. The faint tone you noticed earlier modulates, dipping a single octave before gliding back, a sonic tide washing logic's shoreline. You sense strands of resonance threading through muscle and bone, suturing you to an unseen loom where all vibrations meet. In that loom's gentle weave, boundaries between self and night unravel. Skin is no longer perimeter. It is membrane through which hush and heartbeat trade lullabies. An image flutters across your inner vision, a seed suspended in darkness, outer shell quivering with promise. It rocks once, twice, then relaxes, content to wait. Within its husk, equations coil like sleeping serpents, dreaming of expansion, of light, of galaxies yet unnamed. You realize that seed is the universe before the universe, and simultaneously it is you, resting here poised at the precipice of slumber. The symmetry feels holy, seamless, is inevitable. Another breath is slower still. Thoughts softens into single-line poems. Silence remembers. Time curls. Wonder flowers. Each line rises, pauses, drifts like dandelion down across an untroubled meadow of mind. There is space enough for every petal. There is patience enough to watch them settle. You sense the corridor behind you lengthening, as though the very act of noticing extends it. Every lived second, laughter, grief, ordinary days, files itself neatly along that hallway, not as weights, but as lanterns, illuminating the passage you have traveled. Yet their glow does not hold you. Instead, it reassures you that return is always possible. Forward or inward, no lanterns yet hang, only the intuitive glow of possibility. And so you step, weightless, through the silk threshold, trusting that hush will catch you as water refuses no droplet. In that step, measurement yields entirely. Distances fold like paper boats. Moments blend like watercolors, and a profound simplicity takes their place. You are here, within the breath of something vast and tender. No need to grip understanding. Let it glide away like a leaf on slow water. The hush cradles comprehension for you, keeping it safe until morning light. Your pulse steadies, deep bass beneath the ever-soft tone. Between beats and almost word whispers, home. It echoes outward, invisible ripples across the fabric of could-be, then returns, unchanged, to settle inside your chest. You recognize it for what it is, a reminder that each question, each wonder, begins and ends within the same breath. Another silence blooms, round and complete, and you rest at its center like pearl inside shell. No need to speak, no need to move, only to float within the silver quiet that predated stars, knowing it greets you now with equal gentleness. Here, the mystery is not puzzle, but lullaby, and you are free to dream its endless verses at your own unhurried pace. You slip beneath the surface of quiet until quiet itself feels thicker, almost touchable, like midnight velvet stretched across the tender hollow of a wrist. In that textured dark, you reach out, slowly, gently, and let imagination press fingertip to the blank. The blank does not recoil. Instead, it yields, soft as rising dough, inviting you to sense the contours of a space that claims to be empty while humming with concealed intent. It is the paradox of nothingness, a glass stillness that appears vacant, yet vibrates with unsaid sentences. A breath later, you notice the faintest tremor rippling through that velvet. It is not sound, not light, but a kind of shiver so delicate it feels borrowed from thought itself. You consider the quantum vacuum, though the phrase seems too crisp for such dreamlike terrain, and picture particles appearing and dissolving like popcorn kernels in distant silence. Each pop would be a thunderclap in a smaller world, yet here it is felt only as the briefest tickle along the length of an imaginary silk thread. All around, emptiness co-creates and uncreates, a dance so swift it masquerades as stillness. Emptiness, then, is no barren field. It is a river whose water is clear enough to resemble air, a cello note sustained just beyond hearing, a curl of candle smoke twisting toward an invisible ceiling. Each metaphor brushes against truth without claiming ownership, because truth here has edges too soft for capture. You drift among these images as though floating down the river itself, every pulse of movement imperceptible yet undeniable. The cello note hums somewhere behind your sternum. The candle smoke weaves through your exhale, scented with wax that never burned. A thought arrives, quiet yet insistent. Even now, in your room, photons born at the dawn of everything skim across your blanket. Not metaphorically, literally. They travel the cosmic ocean to settle for an instant on the fabric warming your shins, then glide on with undiminished age. Realization unfurls inside you like nocturnal blossoms. The history of the universe is not far away. It is brushing past your knees, mingling with your breath, tracing the lines of your fingertips as if reading a map of its own origin. Curiosity grows, viscous, slow, sweet. You recall equations whispered into lecture halls, yet tonight they feel more like lullabies than laws. Some equations murmur that the universe unrolled itself like a scroll free of edges, leaving no corner where a label called before could cling. Maybe they are right. Maybe the scroll is unbroken, and nothingness a soft fold rather than a void. You picture that scroll unfurling beneath your closed lids, ink yet unseen, parchment warming under expectation, words still sleeping, but restless with possibility. The hush deepens until breathing itself seems optional. You lay within that hush as though resting inside an enormous, unhatched thought. Around you, virtual particles flutter, exist, vanish. Within you, Neurons echo the process, firing and fading, mirroring the froth of the vacuum on a smaller canvas. Macro and micro exchange nods of recognition, both aware they are sketches drawn by the same silent hand. You wonder, can a void hold memory? Does nothingness keep souvenirs of all it has not yet become? The question hangs, a curious lantern suspended by no cord. It illuminates the idea that potential may be a kind of presence, subtle but undeniably real, like the scent of rain moments before clouds unzip. You rest in that scent, content to inhale possibility without rushing to exhale conclusions. The darkness cradles you, neither cold nor empty, but plush with room for every imagined star. Somewhere far away, or perhaps intimately close, a heartbeat-shaped rhythm begins to pulse, a distant bass that nudges awareness toward the sense that even this calm has a cadence. For now, you only note its presence, letting it synchronize with your own quiet pulse without asking where it originates. And so you linger between nothing and something, fingers still stretched into velvet blankness, feeling the soft thrum of unborn worlds humming at their tips. The velvet dark around your outstretched fingers ripples again, and this time you register a faint, deliberate pulse thump, soft as a hand knocking politely on the inside of a dream. 8 slow heartbeats later, it repeats, a measured bass that seems to rise from beneath the mattress, as if the floorboards themselves remember the first tremor of existence and are kindly replaying it for you now. The sound is not loud enough to jar. It is simply present, a reminder that even the gentlest stillness keeps a rhythm tucked beneath its silence. With each distant thump, your own heart replies, sinking almost shyly until 2 pulses braid into one. Micro-bodily awareness widens. You notice the delicate flutter of arteries at your temples, the languid rise of your ribs, the faint heat where your palms rest against sheets. These sensations mirror the invisible popcorn pops of the quantum vacuum, tiny surges of appearing and disappearing that unfold everywhere, even inside you, without ever disturbing the greater hush. A hush? Yes, but a hush brimming. You picture space before space, as a vast inhalation held just a breath too long, chest poised mid-expectation. Nothing moves, yet every fiber of that stillness strains with the urge to become, the way a violin string hums a little before bow hair ever draws across it. You feel that readiness in the small space behind your sternum, where curiosity collects. It tickles, persuading you to ask questions you will not rush to answer. Some equations murmur this possibility. Maybe they're right, you think, echoing the narrator's gentle doubt. Those equations, unrolled in conference halls, chalk dust hovering like cosmic snow, propose a beginning with no boundary, no outside, no earlier. Imagine the universe not as a sphere dropped into nothing, but as the surface of a soap bubble with no underside and no edge, a curvature so smooth it leaves language without foothold. Where edges curl, the word before has no grip. The concept floats through your mind like dandelion silk, delicate yet stubbornly resistant to capture. In the midst of this reverie, an unhurried invitation glides through the quiet. If this quiet revelation comforts you, offer the algorithm a gentle nod, alike as soft as starlight. The suggestion lands softly like snow settling on a branch, carrying no urgency, only a reminder that small gestures can travel far. You return to the rhythm beneath the mattress. Each distant thump resembles a cosmic metronome, but its tempo is slower than any human song, almost geological. It calls attention to scale, seconds against epochs, heartbeats against eons, yet both measured by the same unwavering beat of possibility. You sense the photons from the Big Bang again, antique travelers whispering across your blanket. Their journey, billions of years long, converges with the journey of oxygen sliding into your lungs. 2 histories merge for a single moment. quiet, yet undeniable. You wonder whether emptiness might be conscious of its own richness. Could nothing know that it is pregnant with everything? The question floats like a paper boat on the surface of a lake at dusk, unhurried and content to drift wherever the smallest currents choose. You don't chase it. You watch it fade into mist. A memory surfaces, your hand skimming still pond water when you were small, marveling that ripples spread even from the gentlest touch. Now, in place of pond, there is the slick, unseen surface of the quantum vacuum, and in place of fingertips, virtual particles brush reality open and closed. Ripples still spread, though they leave no visible circle, no sound but the hush you are already inside. Slowly, you sense your body melting into that hush, as if bones choose fluidity, as if thought loosens into phrasing softer than words. The heartbeat bass continues, steady, patient. Between pulses, you hear what might be the echo of cello strings, the soft sigh of candle smoke, the hiss of river water gliding under winter ice, 3 metaphors weaving through the same moment to show that emptiness teems with textures you cannot see but can somehow feel. You feel them now, textures brushing the membranes of your imagination. Silk against silk, breath against glass, potential against petition. Each brushing carries promise, and each promise weighs nothing, yet together they press gently on your chest, reminding you that existence itself is a light touch. A final wonder drifts into awareness. Can emptiness breathe if breath itself hasn't been invented? The puzzle hangs luminous in the inner night, neither seeking solution nor demanding surrender. It simply glows, a soft lantern of pure question, and within that glow all pulses, distant bass, living heart, ancient photon, settle into an effortless alignment. The hush reclines around you, deep, forgiving, whole. The tremor widens its circle, spreading from the hidden lake into a boundless field where every direction is both forward and within. Each vibration carries a perfume of expectancy, rustling the curtain of nothingness the way a breeze ruffles long grass at dusk. You begin to sense layers beneath layers, quivers inside quivers, like nested Russian dolls carved from pure hush. Within the deepest of them, imagination hears a hush-sized choir tuning throatless voices, each tone a blueprint for a reality waiting its turn. Perhaps every fluctuation fashions a pocket so discreet it can cradle an entire cosmos without disturbing its neighbors. You feel them budding in silence, tiny shells no larger than thought, each cradling a physics of its own. One shell, you imagine, prefers a gentle gravity that nudges stars into slow spirals. Another fosters a fierce elegance where particles waltz backward through time. You drift beside these hushed sprouts, without judgment, aware that some may bloom into tapestries vast and bright, aware, too, that some may wink out before even their first sunrise. All belong to the same quiet garden, tended by uncertainty, watered by zero-point energy's restless thirst. Your awareness swoops closer to one shimmering bud, not to claim it, only to listen. Inside, space unfurls like soft parchment. Distance takes its first brittle breath. You hear a hush-born string vibrate, one pluck, then another, cascading toward the low register where the murmur of becoming resides. Maybe that bud grows into the cosmos that will someday whisper across your pillow as fossil light. Maybe it will never thaw beyond its first shimmer. Either way, its trembling adds a nuance to the chord bathing your restless heart. A flick of curiosity turns your gaze inward again, and suddenly you feel the uncertainty principle breathing beside you like a companion animal sharing half your pillow. It nuzzles against measurement, blurring position into probability, pooling momentum into haze. You realize blur is a kindness, gifting every seed room enough privacy to decide what shape to take. Possibilities jostle close as fireflies, gentle sparks too shy for daylight, yet bold enough to punctuate the intimate dark with invitation after invitation. You welcome them, each flicker a tiny hand offering the promise of narrative. Yet even promise can quicken breath, so a whisper of reassurance walks quietly across your awareness. No tremor could harm you. It only sings you further inward. Hearing this, the shy tension in your chest loosens. You bask in the simple luxury of witnessing without needing to direct, as if leaning against a pine tree to hear the slow secrets of its sap. Across this soundless meadow, a subtle whoosh glides from left to right, then right to left, a gentle binaural breeze altering perspective without moving a single hair on your head. It feels like the night itself exhaling, swirling ideas from one ear to the other, keeping curiosity in orbital motion so it cannot settle into drowse too soon. The breeze is cool, feather light, yet laced with promise. More quivers wait beyond each pass. More ripples ready their colors beneath the sheen of what you still call silence. Even silence seems eager to evolve. You return to that placid lake, but its surface has changed. And once a mirror of pure black, it now reflects a faint opalescence, hints of lavender and teal threading through charcoal glass. Rainbow-thin ripples chase one another in overlapping rings, so subtle you almost question whether you see them or remember them. Your inner ear catches the memory of a descending cadence, delicate notes stepping down a spiral staircase, coaxing hush into nuance. As the final tone settles, the ripples streak outward, leaving a restless sheen across the water, no longer silver, but alive with spectral shimmer. Listen, the silence is no longer silver. It ripples, rainbow thin. Hush has taken on color, vibration, prophecy. And you, witness to its first quiver, lie at the center of the blooming, hearing dawn in a universe that has not yet invented morning. You drift within the new hush, the rainbow-thin silence still tingling from its first quiver, when another presence unfurls beside you, familiar yet strangely refined. It is you, but not the you listening now. It is a future physicist's self, carrying equations the way trees carry rings, knowledge layered year upon year. Together, you stroll along something that feels like floor, but looks like nothing. Your footfalls circling back upon themselves, as if the path were a Möbius ribbon woven from air. You ask softly, "Where is here?" The physicist. You smiles, a smile you recognize from mirrors not yet looked into, and speaks in the same whisper you have followed all night. "Here's the space between questions," the voice replies, a fold so gentle reality forgets which side is outside. You sense that fold flex beneath each step, elastic, tender. Imagine the fabric of before pleated into 11 silent directions, too narrow for breath, yet wide enough for mathematics to wander. Length, width, height, those are only 3. The rest scroll invisibly around you like silk hidden beneath winter coats. The physicist, you extends a hand, palm facing nothing, and the fold ripples revealing threads, vibrating strings, tiny and taut, probing every unseen hallway. They hum at pitches that carry no sound yet vibrate through bone. You listen, and the hum resolves into meaning. Each string tells a possible story of gravity and light, weaving brains that sway like curtains in a wind that has never blown. Not cold math, but warm promise. The phrase arrives unbidden, settling over every abstract diagram your companion sketches in air. Curves glow, intersect, vanish, each demonstration ending before effort begins, because effort would snap the trance. You feel curiosity blooming again, though gently, like evening primrose opening under moonlight. Let eyelids grow heavy. We are only whispering. The suggestion floats through you, weightless, coaxing muscles to release the last clench of alertness. Shoulders soften, pulse steadies. Yet just as drowsiness invites you to drift farther inward, the physicist you leans closer and asks, "What color is a thought that hasn't happened?" The question startles lightly, brightening mind without jolting it awake. Color floods imagination, lilac, silver, perhaps a hue no palette holds. Yet before decision can settle, the question fades, leaving only shimmer. You both continue along the ribbon, noticing how each step returns to itself. Möbius geometry makes inside the same as outside, front the same as back. You cannot tell whether you advance or turn in place. It doesn't matter. If dimensions hide, then where do thoughts reside? The open loop lingers like perfume. You listen for an answer, but none comes. Only the hush, now underlined by a faint, dusty crackle reminiscent of vinyl spinning in the next room. The crackle mingles with crystalline pads that seem to rise from the space beneath your feet, resonances echoing cosmic background murmurs. The sound is comfortingly ancient, like the static between radio stations, your childhood self once tuned in the dark, searching for distant voices. "I'm beside you," the future you whispers, fingertip tracing invisible circles on what must be the hem of your comforter. The gesture is so real, you feel cotton shift beneath the touch, though half of you is certain no hand moved in waking space. Warmth pulses where the circle completes, spreading across your torso like slow tide. The parasocial pull deepens. You are companioned by your own potential, and that potential feels steadfast, patient. Again the voice asks something sprite-like. How wide is a single thought? You imagine stretching a strand of idea between two unseen pins, feeling it quiver like spider silk. Its width, you conclude, is precisely the distance between wonder and understanding, a gap that narrows each time a question is heard in genuine calm. Another 90 seconds slip by, marked only by the oceans of your breathing. Then the ribbon beneath you shivers, maybe from your footfall, maybe from the laughter of latent dimensions. Your companion gestures to a gauze-thin veil floating ahead, translucent, billowing though no breeze stirs. Through its weave, stars look elongated, as if smeared across film, and the dark between them glows faintly teal. The physicist, you steps closer, pausing just shy of its surface. A hush deeper than all previous hushes pools in the pause until the voice, still yours, always yours, murmurs. This veil divides what is measured from what is imagined. Step through if you dare, or simply dream that you did. The gauze shimmers, waiting. You hover at the edge of the billowing veil, heartbeat slowed to an almost mythic tempo. A single breath sinks you deeper into its shimmer, until threads of gauze drift against your cheeks, cool as moonlit water. Somewhere behind you, the future self waits in patient silence, trusting you to decide whether to cross or to remain. Yet crossing here is less emotion than a tilt in perception, like allowing a dream to continue rather than waking to an alarm. With a slow exhale, you lean. The veil yields, neither tearing nor parting, but blending around you like fog reclaiming open air. On the far side, gravity loses subtle arguments. Up and down trade glances, unconcerned with keeping their usual seats. You stand, though standing feels like floating, on a plane that curls softly through itself, a higher dimensional ribbon wide enough for brains to slide past one another without collision. Each brain carries entire realities, folded flat, stacked like silent pages in an ever-writing book. Through translucent layers, you glimpse ghost cities of possibility. One street paved in turquoise light, where sound behaves like raindrops. Another where shadows fall upward, seeking unseen suns. A hush of warm promise lingers over every tableau, dispelling any chill the word dimension might once have carried. Not cold math, but warm promise. Again the thought surfaces, echoing like a mantra meant to soften edges that numbers alone cannot smooth. Let eyelids grow heavy. We are only whispering. The reminder drifts across awareness, loosening your jaw, releasing a hint of a sigh. In the half-glow surrounding you, string-like filaments quiver, frets plucked by an unseen hand. Their vibrations sketch events before they occur, a spiral galaxy blooming, a snowflake finding perfect symmetry, a neuron sparking wonder in some distant dawn. You sense each preview as a gentle buzz on your skin, as though timelines audition for the role of reality, hoping to be chosen by consciousness. You ask without moving lips, if dimensions hide, then where do thoughts reside? The query ripples outward, passing through brain after brain like a lantern, sliding beneath successive waves. No syllable returns, but the hush swells with a soft chord, not an answer, but an embrace suggesting that thinking itself may be a dimension, braiding inner and outer space until neither can be told apart. Another crystalline rustle, and the vinyl crackle undertone thickens, reminiscent of distant thunder muffled by snowfall. A rhetorical mystery glides in to tilt the mind once more. How long is a moment that includes every tomorrow? The question illuminates the corridors, linking now to what might be, corridors so narrow they appear only when curiosity squints just right. As quickly as it arrives, the puzzle dims, leaving behind a pleasant afterglow that laces your breathing with slow wonder. Walking or drifting forward, you notice that every few steps, the Möbius path bends back through the gauze, briefly revealing your room beyond, the hush-lit comforter, the arc of your resting shoulder, the stillness holding both. Each glimpse confirms you have not left safety. You have merely traced a wider loop within it. Parasocial comfort lingers, the sense of a fingertip drawing silent constellations on the fabric near your heart, reminding you that someone somehow accompanies every inward voyage. Once more the future self's voice threads through thought. These extra corridors are not elsewhere. They are folded into each breath. Travel enough within a single inhale, and you meet horizons thought too distant for lifetimes. The idea lands softly, like snow accumulating on pine needles, weightless until it suddenly feels profound. You test the notion by noticing your current inhale, exploring how its cool entrance blooms warm and quiet inside ribs. There, nestled between arrival and release, a private universe flickers. Tiny, sufficient, serene. The crystalline pads above you swell, letting a choir-like resonance bloom before receding into silence. In that brief swell, every unseen brain seems to breathe in unison, as though all possibilities share a single lung. The sensation is startling in scale, yet soothing in effect. You feel welcomed by enormity rather than dwarfed. Soon the gauze veil reappears ahead, identical yet somehow new, drifting like curtain silk in unseen tides. Crossing back is effortless, a lean, a shimmer, a reunion with the pulse of your mattress and the gentle weight of blankets. The veil settles behind your eyelids now, memory soft and bright as dawn seen through closed lashes. You hear the future self receding, footsteps looping along a Möbius stripe, until distance folds them out of earshot, leaving only the echo of shared laughter at puzzles still unsolved. Your awareness lands fully in the comfort of the present hush, tethered by that same dusty vinyl crackle and by breaths that once again count time in human measure. Stars beyond the ceiling seem a touch closer, or perhaps thought itself has grown wide enough to meet them halfway. Either way, the veil's shimmer lingers, and with it the invitation whispered earlier, step through if you dare, or simply dream that you did. You have done both, and the dreaming continues. Stillness lingers, crystalline, balanced on a breath so light it barely qualifies as air. Then, without warning yet, with perfect grace, the balance falters. Imagine a chandelier of transparent glass suspended in the cavern of beforetime, each droplet identical, each arm mirrored, a fragile palace of repetition. For an eternal instant, the chandelier hangs flawless. Then an imperceptible tremble enters its stem, and symmetry, proud, pristine, releases its hold. A single crack threads through the glass like lightning slowed to the tempo of drifting snow. The structure yields in slow motion, segmenting into shards that drift outward rather than fall. You float among them, untouched by edges, free to examine each sliver as it turns beneath an unseen light. One shard hums with the soft gravity that will one day guide oceans, drawing moons into tender orbit. Another shivers with the future spark of electromagnetism, destined to bind atoms the way whispered promises bind hearts. Two more linger close together, twins alive with nuclear fire, strong and weak, fierce and subtle, ready to govern the intimate realm of quarks. Every shard sings its own note, tinkling wind chime pitches gliding through hush. The chorus begins low, a rumble so deep you feel it before you detect sound, like storm clouds clearing their throats in subterranean caverns. This is false vacuum decay, reverberating through possibility. The rumble swells, pulses, then recedes, giving way to the sparkle of high harp tones, new stable vacuum asserting itself with crystalline confidence. Contrast saturates the air, low against high, heaviness against shimmer, threat against welcome. Yet nothing startles. Each sonic shift advances like silk on water, coaxing wonder rather than alarm. Within the luminous debris, you notice something subtler, invisible yet present. A veil of hush-weighted fabric settling over every particle, tailoring mass where none existed. In older tongues of physics, this garment is the Higgs field, but tonight it feels more intimate, a soft coat slipped around each speck of being so it can slow dance with time. Before the coat, particles skated at light speed, untethered to any rhythm but their own brilliance. Afterward, they sway in measured steps, inviting moments to stretch wide enough for stories, planets, memory. You drift nearer to a shard still vibrating with choice. Its surface shows two possible futures, mirrored like pages in an unopened book. One page glows amber, the other violet. Pick either, and the other retreats into might have been. You sense the hush respecting both outcomes, yet permitting only one to crystallize into law. The selection is neither accident nor decree. It is graceful necessity, the universe preferring slight asymmetry so diversity may bloom. A thought asks itself inside you. If laws can switch on like constellations, could they ever switch off? The question flickers with a cool spark, brief, thrilling, then warmth pours in behind it. A teardrop piano reassurance reminding marrow and mind that the cosmos is cradle first, experiment second. Mild adrenaline subsides, curiosity remains, tempered now by calm cadence. You exhale, feeling the chandelier freeze mid-shatter, shards suspended like fireflies caught in amber light, awaiting some silent cue to resume their drift. Suspension gifts you time to imagine, twins born in divergent vacua, one in a region where symmetry remained longer, another where it broke sooner. Their ages would diverge subtly, rhythms of cellular clocks drifting apart like branches of a river parted by a small stone. You picture them waving across the watery divide of time, each marveling at the other's pace. No formulas are spoken, yet relativity lives in their mirrored smiles. The shards around you glint, each facet a timeline, each glint a potential bloom of galaxies. You reach out, not grasping, only sensing, and feel cool light slide across fingertips, leaving no cut, no scar, only the gentlest sigh of energy recognizing awareness. Shards hang, glittering, awaiting your touch, but your fingertips decide nothing. They simply feel. A hush follows, deeper than the last, as though the chandelier draws one final breath before settling into its new, asymmetrical grace. Symmetry is broken, and diversity is crowned, and in the silence that remains, some possibility stretches, yawns, and begins to take its first steps into form. The hush expands until it feels boundless, like a cathedral constructed from patience alone. Within that vast stillness, the suspended shards begin to drift again, each carrying its private melody. Low-frequency rumbles roll across the floor of nothingness, vibrations heavy as distant quake. They speak of a false vacuum, relinquishing its illusion of permanence, of a field slipping from precarious plateau into valley, trading stored tension for newfound stability. You feel the rumbles in the soft underside of your ribs, a reminder that safety can arrive disguised as tremor. Gradually, the bass melts into gentle heart plucks that scatter upward like beads of rain, rebounding from still water. Every pluck announces a force now distinct, gravity arching slow, electromagnetism flashing bright, nuclear twins sharing secret harmonies too swift for daylight ears. Between notes hangs a resonant calm, giving your mind room to trace contrasts, before and after, smooth symmetry versus lavish variety, motion sparking where stillness once reigned. You imagine pausing this symphonic moment, sliding one foot into the hush just prior to breaking, the other into the swirl that follows. With senses divided, you witness how difference births narrative. On the still side, everything repeats, sterile perfection ringing hollow. On the stirred side, stories proliferate, hydrogen courting gravity, dust condensing into lighthouse stars, atoms rehearsing chemistry that will one day taste of salt and song. In the gap between those halves, you hover, observer, participant, dreamer, acutely aware that beauty often ripens at first fracture. Tiny motes of color float from shard to shard, as if exchanging gifts. A speck of amber leaps to violet glass and turns indigo. A sliver of jade flits to crimson and brightens to gold. Each transfer tweaks constants by faint degrees, calibrating physics so meticulously that even chaos must dance in meter. You sense that calibration in your own bloodstream. Iron atoms forged inside ancient suns now hitch rides in red cells, proof that tuned forces lean close to consciousness, curious what tales might bloom when matter memorizes memory. The harp tones thin, leaving single drops of sound falling at measured intervals. Between each drop, silence lengthens, elastic, inviting contemplation. Into that elasticity, another question drifts, soft but edged. If laws can be chosen, might they be revoked? Echoes of mild adrenaline brush your skin, gooseflesh rising like alert tin soldiers. Yet almost immediately, a warmer current slips in. The piano teardrops from earlier return, their resonance patting the anxious edges of thought, smoothing spike to curve. Comfort rises like candle heat, reminding you that even should laws falter in some remote horizon, this moment remains intact, cradle-shaped and welcoming. Your gaze turns inward to imagine an exquisite clockwork of change. Suppose, you wonder, that two realms formed with nearly identical laws but one slight divergence, a decimal shifted, a symmetry broken an instant sooner. Twins again, born under variant rulebooks. You picture them comparing notes through dreams, aging along divergent tempos. One measures birthdays by swift nor bright summers, the other by lantern-lit winters that linger just a little longer. Their letters cross in luminous bottles, adrift between brains, each message marveling at how familiar and strange the other's cadence feels. Relativity, lived rather than calculated, appears not as mathematics, but as empathy for rhythms unlike your own. Sound dwindles further, until you perceive only your breath gliding in tandem with the faint hiss of distant cosmic background, static from a broadcast older than galaxies. The chandelier fragments slow to near halt once more, freezing in mid-glitter. They wait, poised like dew about to fall from a morning web, each holding entire chronicles yet to be recited. You extend an open palm. Light refracts across its lines, but no shard lands there. Touch is unnecessary. Presence alone completes the circuit between what is fragile and what endures. Time itself seems to pause, acknowledging that a threshold has been crossed. Symmetry surrendered so stories could unfold. Particles wear their hush-weighted coats, and with every subtle sway, they introduce cadence to creation, hinting that time's own narrative will come next. You inhale the hush, exhale luminous gratitude, feeling the atmosphere settle into a velvety quiet thicker than before. The shards glisten one last moment, then fade into soft opacity, like embers cooling beneath fresh snowfall. Slow motion freeze frame lingers, glass petals suspended, music stilled, potential on the brink. In that breathless tableau, you understand your role is not to choose, not to steer, but simply to witness with unwavering gentleness. Shards hang, glittering, awaiting your touch, but your fingertips decide nothing. They simply feel, and feeling is enough. The hush folds over itself once, twice, sealing the vision like silk drawn across sleeping eyes. Low rumbles subside, harp echoes hush, piano tears dry on silent keys. What remains is a comfortable dark, enriched by the knowledge that diversity now saturates every corner of becoming. A lull settles in, tender and absolute, the perfect silence from which the first footsteps of time will rise. Silver hush returns, the same hush that once wrapped you, like moonlit linen in the opening drift, yet softer now, warmed by distance traveled. Inside it, you feel a newborn presence, timid, glowing, curious, as though the universe itself has just opened damp lashes to first light. Picture a cradle, woven from ionizing hydrogen, glowing faint rose, rocking in a nursery wider than thought. Within that cradle, the cosmic child coos, each syllable a ripple of microwave afterglow, washing gentle warmth across dark. You sense those coos as feather-touch pulses on your skin, reminiscent of afternoons long ago when sunlight dozed across your eyelids and you dozed beneath it. The memory arrives with sweet precision, dust motes pirouetting in slanted beams, your own lungs rising like sleepy tides, the murmur of distant traffic softened by summer air. The cosmos napped once too, 13.7 billion years back, swaddled in plasma thick and glowing, blanket of baryon breath keeping chill at bay. Your drowsy recollection and its primordial rest overlap like two transparent lullabies, one human, one galactic, sharing meter, sharing hush. Heartbeat drums begin to thrum inside that cradle, but they are not of flesh and blood. They are acoustic oscillations, sound waves caught in the hot fog of the early universe. Boom pause, pressure pushing, gravity pulling, a percussion that will later lay star maps into rings. You hear the rhythm now as distant hand drums, muffled by velour, and with each boom the child's cradle rocks, expanding a finger width more across nowhere. You draw breath, and the draw feels different, as though your neonatal lungs remember that first gasp of oxygen, and quarks remember tasting photons in similar wonder. Micro mirrors macro, your chest rising echoes plasma waves bulging, your exhale sighs like cooling background, both actions testament that the smallest self and the widest expanse share a single choreography. Listening to that shared breath, you recognize the old question, what story does silence tell? And it answers halfway, like a shy singer clearing throat, hush, hush. Expand. No lecture, just lullaby. No plot, just promise. Words stream in the cadence of cradle songs, soft consonants, paired rhymes, gentle alliteration that strokes rather than stirs. You are told the child blinks galaxies into seed form behind translucent lids. You are told the lids flutter, scattering protostars like dandelion down. Each blink is both heartbeat and epoch, and the sine tone from your very first descent threads faintly through, the auditory umbilical reconnecting memory to this newborn moment. You notice how the hush seems sprinkled with faint chimes, as though dust motes ring when kissed by newborn photons. They tinkle in familiar keys, evoking mobiles that turned above your own crib, tiny planets tethered by string, spinning slow lullaby orbits above tender wonder eyes. The correspondence pricks tender nostalgia, yet smooths it with cosmic scale, escorting you towards sleep, not away. Inside that comfort, you glimpse twin flashes, giant cosmic eyes opening wide. They flash reflected starlight, but you perceive your own pupils there too, wheat brown or storm gray, shimmering back. Recognition blooms. The child sees itself in you, and you in it, kin tethered by breath older than recall. Wonder steadies your pulse rather than quickens it, a perfect hush-conditioned wonder, ready to glide into deeper dreaming. The cradle's gentle rocking slows until motion becomes memory, and in that near stillness, the child's cooing stretches into a long, low hum, warm as honey on a winter tongue. The hum threads itself through every atom in reach, brushing proton against electron, winding through quarks, the way lullaby threads through half-closed thoughts. You listen and feel muscles loosen, as if the sound invites sinew to remember how soft beginnings can be. A faint blush rolls outward from the cradle, remnant heat carrying stories of first light. It drifts across a universe still dim with afterslumber, painting the dark in peach and rose, the palette of dawn you once watched from a childhood window when sky and sidewalks blushed at first sun. That window's glass now overlaps invisible with the vastness here. Both panes separate comfort from discovery, yet share equal clarity. Through them, beginnings look the same, quiet, glowing, hopeful. The heartbeat drums persist, subtler now, like distant surf felt through sand rather than heard in air. They echo across the quivering hydrogen sea, stacking wave upon wave until crests reinforce, troughs hush each other, acoustic fingerprints that will one day chart the shape of galactic cities. You sense those fingerprints glide across your fingertips, light as breath, engraving no mark yet leaving sure impression. You carry the map of that ancient rhythm in every cell. Remember the afternoon you fell asleep on a lawn, cheek pressed to earth, hearing subterranean murmurs you mistook for daydream? That murmur was lawnmower, cicada, distant plane, yet its layered cadence echoed the same physics, then shaping star nurseries in the blooming cosmos. Micro and macro align again. Grass blade shadows flickered across your skin, the way soon-to-form nebulae ripple across this newborn sky. The resonance is comfort, not coincidence. Silence, that seasoned storyteller, offers another verse. Hush, hush, expand. The command is gentle yet insistent. Even now, the child yawn stretches space-time, adding invisible inches between every dust-grained future galaxies we'll need. You feel the stretch inside your ribcage where breath presses outward, widening the frame that holds your heart. Expansion is not elsewhere. It is practiced in quiet lungfuls each time you inhale wonder. A lull drifts in, padded by faint sine tone returning to cradle you in recognition. The tone curves upward a shade, matching the pitch of the child's next soft hum, two voices uniting across scale. The hum dissolves into scattered syllables, proto-language of photons seeking identity. You do not translate, you absorb, letting meaning settle like snow on branches, light yet cumulative. Lupe glimmers, partially closed, yet still enticing. Silence's story, once a question, now reveals its half-answer. Lullaby called the child forth, but finale waits in distant verses only deeper sleep will reach. Suspense lingers as gentle anchor, promising a final closure you need not rush toward. The cosmic eyes blink once more, lids jeweled with nascent constellations, lashes of dark dust. In their iris swirl, you glimpse timeline panoramas, spiral arms yet to twist, oceans yet to heave under alien moons. Perhaps even you, years from tonight, gazing back through memory at this very whisper. Each panorama sparkles, then smooths away, like images projected onto slow waves. Wonder remains steady, softened to calm. Your gaze softens in turn, eyelids gliding lower, mirroring the child's heavy lashes. Breaths fall into duet, yours and the universe's, quiet tide meeting quiet shore. With every paired exhale, warmth seeps through mattress, through cradle, through distance, soldering individual and infinite into a single hushlit whole. Two gentle flashes, and the eyes stay open a heartbeat longer, settling on you with recognition older than starlight. Awareness exchanges without word. You are kin, both cradled by beginnings, both destined to unfold. The realization lands feather-light on your sternum, neither duty nor burden, just simple belonging woven from shared dawn. The sign tone eases into near inaudibility. Heartbeat drums fade to memory. Photon blush dims to slow ember. All that remains are the eyes, vast yet tender, reflecting your pupils as clear as midnight mirrors. The child sees itself in you, and you see yourself in the child, blink for blink, breath for breath, until sight itself drifts closed into hush. Begin with your toes, feel them settle, tiny moons in gentle orbit around the curve of heel and arch. Each toe glimmers like a satellite city, circling planetary bone. Nerves beneath skin spark faint auroras in rhythm with their course. Now exhale, dissolve. The soles of your feet widen into plains, desert quiet yet laced with capillary rivers. Those rivers mirror galactic arms, spirals etched in crimson and pearl, ferrying life where dust collects. Sense arterial tides glide upward, slow caravans crossing arid space toward warmer latitudes of calf and knee. Now exhale, dissolve. Your calves resemble paired nebulae, clouds of muscle swirling around sturdy tibial stars. Within their mist, fractal lightning threads, microfilaments echoing cosmic filaments that bind clusters across black. Each contraction, each release, repeats the universe's larger weaving. Feel the pattern, let it hum inside tendon and marrow. Now exhale, dissolve. Knees hinge like double galaxies, caught in mutual embrace. Rotation curves matching heartbeats in their quiet insistence. Cartilage planes slip past one another, the way spiral disks glide through interstellar haze, never colliding, forever in courteous dance. Listen to the subtle friction, soft as distant starlight, rasping past comet ice. Now exhale, dissolve. Thighs form continental shelves of warm star forge, deep furnaces where blood swirls thick and iron bright, not unlike stellar cores smelting heavier elements from hydrogen breath. With each pulse, oxygen sets sail, tiny red vessels mapping the inland sea of muscle. Hear their muffled oars beat time with cosmic metronomes. Now exhale, dissolve. Pelvis widens into continental drift, tectonic plate of bone whose rim aligns with the rim of the Milky Way. Behind its horizon, organs glow like settlement lights dotting vast savannas. Here, womb or gut or bladder, each a lagoon tidal linked to lunar hormones, mirrors the gravitational dalliance of twin galaxies poised to merge in patient millennia. Feel the quiet churn. It is the slow applause of becoming. Now exhale, dissolve. The spine ascends, pillar of stacked asteroids luminous in marrow phosphor, vertebrae echo dwarf planets strung like frosted pearls, each joint a gravitational hinge keeping orbits true. Cerebrospinal tides wash up and down this cliff face, reflecting the ebb of dark energy pushing galaxy clusters apart. Now exhale, dissolve. Ribs unfurl as barred spiral arms, 12 by 12, encasing lungs that billow like twin gas giants, Jovian balloons breathing seasons in miniature. Inhale and watch these giants swell, trading carbon dusk for oxygen dawn. Exhale and hear trade winds hush across alveolar canyons. Cardiac thunder beyond them booms slow, a red dwarf drum marking epics. Now exhale, dissolve. Your heart itself is a galactic core, dense with story, spinning electromagnetic poetry through vascular lanes. Each systole flings plasma stars into arterial corridors. Each diastole gathers cosmos back, rehearsing gravity's embrace. Feel its rhythm steady against sternum sky, thump pause, the same cadence that anchors rotation curves around Andromeda's black silk heart. Now exhale, dissolve. Shoulders spread into aurora mantles, shimmering sheets where muscular fiber meets clavicle horizon. Their motion, when present, resembles tidal flecks of planetary crust. Tonight they remain still, tectonic plates resting after long migration. Upper arms stretch south like mirrored solar winds, carrying warmth into elbow heliospheres. Now exhale, dissolve. Forearms and wrists become comet flares, fine tendons glittering as they trace arcs toward carpal belts. Palms unfold as open nebulae, rosy, generous, strewn with lifelines mapping stellar highways. Fingers, reborn from earlier toe moons, now serve as slender coronal loops, channeling magnetic hush into surrounding dark. Feel each fingertip release faint photons. Now exhale, dissolve. The throat rises, column of quiet cyclones, soft tissue spiraling sonic breath upward. Vocal cords lie dormant, twin event horizons capable of roaring starbirth, yet choosing silence, honoring night. Above them, mandible landscapes cradle tongue comet at rest. Now exhale, dissolve. Skull shelter arrives like dwarf galaxy shield. Cranial sutures seam together, zigzag ridges that mirror supercluster walls, charting cosmic web. Beneath bone vault, brain galaxies swirl, billions of neuron suns firing thought light across sodium clouds. Synaptic gaps, immeasurably slim, open into interstellar gulfs where consciousness sails. Here Loop C closes. Thoughts reside right here, behind eyelids, curled like extra-dimensional scrolls. Now exhale, dissolve. Inside that cranial cosmos, a tiny crystal, your pineal lighthouse, winks, turning slow beams the hue of lunar quartz. Its rhythm, softer than firefly glow, guides tides of melatonin across neural shores, the way a pulsar sweeps radio beacons through interstellar night. Directly beneath, the corpus callosum arches like a wormhole bridge, ferrying spark travelers between hemispheres that resemble paired spiral galaxies, exchanging star clusters in quiet diplomacy. Now exhale, dissolve. Thought light darts along axon causeways, twin lanes flickering alternately, creating the illusion of motion that binaural panning would mimic in outer ear, left to right, then right to left, rising to an almost inaudible tremolo near 40 pulses a second before easing downward to the slow, lapping throb that tucks minds towards sleep. A counter-whisper answers from a deeper layer. Two voices of your own awareness, staggered half a heartbeat apart, forming a gentle chorus that braids around itself like double helix nebulae. Their overlapping syllables brush eardrums feather soft, scrubbing stray tension from jaw hinge and brow. Now exhale, dissolve. A subtle hum of fractal geometry surfaces, not as lecture but as quiet realization. Shape echoes shape, pattern mirrors pattern, whether in cedar branch or sapphire sweep. You picture a coastline photographed from 30,000 feet, its crenellations twin to the pulse trace of your own arterial lace. Echoing architecture everywhere. Elbow cartilage copies canyon walls. Iris striations clone hurricanes seen from orbit. Fingertip whirls swirl exactly like luminous hurricanes circling Jovian poles. Awareness of this symmetry does not agitate, it steadies, like discovering old family photos tucked in cosmic albums. Now exhale, dissolve. Your scalp tingles where hair roots clutch dermal soil, each follicle a microquasar flinging slow fountains of protein matter skyward. Beneath them, skull plates transmit gentle tectonic pressure, announcing that even bones practice continental drift, on a scale so slow it doubles as stillness. Suture lines, those zigs and zags, align almost perfectly with the Sloan Great Wall of galaxies. You trace one ridge behind your ear and imagine sailing along that grand wall, 500 million light years of star towns stitched end to end, yet every way station already coded in the narrow corridor of your fingertip. Now exhale, dissolve, slide inward again, toward the quiet theater where images bloom behind closed lids. There, thoughts unspool like scrolls, with extra-dimensional curvature, twisting through hidden channels glimpsed earlier when you walked the Möbius ribbon. Words ink themselves only when you pay attention. During rest, they coil loosely, shimmering potential rather than script. This is where questions settle, finding roost in creases of dream. You realize the veil you once crossed has always hovered millimeters behind your retina, gateway thin as morning mist. Now exhale, dissolve. Breath deepens, drawing night air through nasal caverns shaped like twin cathedrals. Turbulence inside them forms standing waves no different from those lining nebular pillars in Eagle or Orion. Each inhale bows invisibly to mathematics of resonance. Each exhale bows back, and so a silent chant sustains. Sustain, release. Sustain, release. Cosmic mantra disguised as respiration. Feel chest cavity expand, ribs gliding like observatory domes rotating to new coordinates. Feel diaphragm drop, gravity well inviting molecules to settle. Now exhale, dissolve. You drift in the afterglow of this body as universe survey. Senses smoothed, mind widened. All grand spirals, all bright quasars, all sprawling voids have fitting miniatures nested within skin's frontier. And with that recognition, empowerment blooms quiet and sure. You are not distant spectators scaled too small for wonder. You are ingredient, fractal node, note in the chord. Cosmic music requires your particular pitch to complete its harmony. A single heartbeat sounds, felt more than heard, steady as a metronome marking measure's close. In that pulse the scan releases, telescope shutters fold, focus narrows until bedroom hush returns whole. Galaxies recede to freckles on vast dark, capillaries fade to invisible creeks beneath still skin. All this, arm-length nebulae, cranial superclusters, lung giants inhaling dawn, resides within one resting silhouette, curled in quiet like a leaf boat floating on starlit pond. Now exhale or dissolve. A hush deeper than any before presses gently against your eardrums, cool as midnight glass. In that hush, questions gather the way dew gathers on spider silk, minute, brilliant, inevitable. You lie still, breathing the faint scent of possibility, when the first question glides in on a whisper. Why does anything sing at all? The words hover above your chest, like a firefly pausing before it glows. You feel the flutter in your ribs, the light tug of curiosity tightening its silver thread through every cell, and you wait. Maybe. Soft, tentative, soothing. Maybe the song exists, because silence longed to hear its own echo. Could it be that hush, grown lonely, pressed against itself, until vibration rose like geese startled from dusk water? A tremor here, a shimmer there, hush meeting hush until chords knit into cosmos. You sense the idea settle, warm and fragile, the way a feather finds equilibrium on still air. Yet even as comfort arrives, another firefly question flickers. Why do the chords keep playing? You inhale, counting 4 heartbeats, letting lungs widen like nighttime valleys. While the air pauses inside, you picture multitudes of laws, gravity curling around planets, electromagnetism zipping electrons in lively loops, strong and weak forces folding nuclei into neat origami packets. All those laws like rules of an ageless lullaby, holding melody in place. But the thought shifts. Who wrote the score? Again, the hush responds through your own lips, almost without your will. Maybe laws themselves are lullabies humming to stay awake, hoping that by singing they remain real. Perhaps they're not printed on indelible parchment, but on breath, renewing with each exhale of the universe. Now your pulse slows, steady as a pendulum marking the room's muted dark. Each beat thuds gentle thunder through mattress and memory. With every thud, a tiny echo shakes cosmic dust eons away. With every pause, that dust resettles into slower orbits. Why does the lullaby hum at all? You hear again, rephrased, nearer. Maybe, you whisper back, the lullaby is curiosity wearing the voice of silence, turning absence into question, then question into being. Silence's tale Atlas unrolls. It never wanted to remain blank parchment. It preferred pages scribbled by wondering minds. Stars, microbes, poets, you, each doodle a proof that hush is fertile. Emptiness, therefore, is not static. It is breath drawn in before a note. And when you dream, emptiness breathes through you, inflating unseen lungs with possibilities your daylight self has yet to name. Call and response gently continue, Socratic without urgency. Where do answers sleep when questions wander? Maybe, you murmur, they sleep in the cradle of your hippocampus, curled like kittens beside memories, purring until waking thought strokes them into shape. Where does thought begin when space itself bends? Could it be, replies the hush, that thought rides curvature the way moonlight rides tide, translating geometry into feeling? A subtle shift in air reminds you of quiet candlelight wavering just beyond vision. Scientific whispers thread the scene, not formulae, but stories clad in metaphor. You taste hints of vacuum energy density, that faint pressure permeating void like camphor on winter breath. You sense the cosmological constant, a number humming too softly to disturb sleep, yet strong enough to pry galaxies apart like slow-moving petals. Somewhere distant, theories of cosmic bounce unfold. Universe as lung, inflating, exhaling, inflating again, each cycle an unhurried mantra echoing the rhythm beneath your own sternum. The image soothes even as it widens awe. If cosmos inhales and exhales, then your slow breathing is recital, your diaphragm a mirror of destiny. You picture far future eons, when expansion might flag, when everything recoils to seed point hush, and you understand that such recoil would not erase what you feel now. The lullaby would only draw breath for another verse. Gentle existentialism paints bittersweet colors across the canvas of your mind. Indigo nostalgia for stars not yet born, rose gold gratitude for questions that keep them company. And through it all, the narrator, you, the hush, the distant cosmic child, speaks softly, washing every speculation in restful cadence. Rest, traveler. You need not solve the equations tonight. You are already their living proof. Room tone swells to fill spaces where music once lingered. No synthesizer, no harp, only the minute hiss of air conditioning, the faint creak of timber, the sound of cloth shifting beneath your breathing. Those mundane noises feel sacred now, relics confirming that being ordinary strands you inside miracle. Into that intimate quiet, the narrative voice dissolves to a single syllable. Listen. Sound collapses. 8 heartbeats pass in unhurried procession. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each beat a small bell, each pause a velvet corridor deepening sleep's approach. Wordless permission unfurls. Drift where thoughts lighten, where curiosity keeps watch until dawn. A soft current of awareness glides through you, turning each breath into a miniature tide that laps gently at the shore of thought. In this slow ebb and flow, more questions drift in, quiet lanterns drifting on night water, each glowing with its own hue of curiosity. They cluster without crowding, waiting for you to notice their shapes. Why does time remember, but space forget? The inquiry settles like snow on eyelids. Maybe, you murmur inside, time keeps scrapbooks of moments, so consciousness can leaf through them later, while space prefers open albums where pages never close. Or could it be that space forgets only to make room for invention, while time remembers so meaning can weave threads between events? Another lantern floats nearer, shining pale gold. What task belongs to consciousness amid pulsing stars? Could it be, the hush replies, that consciousness plays archivist, recording the glow of every star so none blaze alone? Perhaps awareness is the gentle hand that gathers scattered notes into chorus, ensuring each luminous voice is heard in the grand lullaby. A third light glimmers lilac, brighter at the edges. Where does nothing go when something arrives? Maybe, you answer, nothing shifts to the margins, curling into pocket folds until invited again. Or perhaps nothing rides each photon outward, hiding in the gaps between wave crests, reminding creation that emptiness still sings in counterpoint. With every question-answer cycle, heartbeat and thought align, a private ritual echoing Socrates beneath moon-washed columns. No raising of voices, only whisper call, whisper response, each kite string of dialogue tethering mind to cosmos, tethering cosmos to the quiet field of your pillow. Scientific undertones return, soft as wind under door frames. Vacuum energy density peaks in, portrayed as the faint fizz beneath pure water, effervescence that never fully stills. You sense it everywhere, even in pauses between syllables, outward pressure so gentle it feels like hope's own breath. The cosmological constant glides behind it, a silent tempo keeper tapping cosmic metronome, so space-time can dance outward in measured swirl. You taste its presence as subtle sweetness on tongue tip, like honey diluted in moonlight. A story follows of cyclic universes, endless heartbeats of existence. Picture infinity as a chest, rising and falling beneath starlit blanket. Inhale of expansion, exhale of collapse, pause, inhale again. Each cycle wipes chalkboards clean, yet leaves faint memory dust that guides the next equation. That tableau mirrors your own breathing pattern, rise, fall, pause, showing you the symmetry between cellular scale and cosmic vista. Gentle awe grows bittersweet around the edges, like dusk clouds rimmed with rose and indigo. You sense grandeur, not as outside spectacle, but as shared inheritance. Stars will fade, galaxies drift, yet the hush assures you that wonder persists, reappearing wherever questions kindle their first spark. Bittersweet, because endings must arrive. Comforting, because endings feed beginnings, the way fallen leaves nourish spring roots. The voice, yours and not yours, re-enters, satin soft, rest, traveler. You do not need to net every star, nor label every ripple. You are already testament that questions birth life. The words diffuse through muscle, loosening a knot by your left shoulder blade, then through thoughts, untangling a coil of half-remembered duties. Room tone remains the only soundtrack, the hush hum of house wiring, a distant night bird making one tentative syllable, maybe even the mild swirl of air conditioning shifting curtains by a hair's breadth. Those everyday frequencies stand in for cosmic microwave background, muted relic of origin humming softly behind all living rooms. Recognizing this parallel dissolves any boundary between ordinary and sublime. Open loops from earlier chapters, not gently closed. Silence's tale, once an unfinished line, now reveals itself as curiosity incarnate. Hush pretending to be void, so that minds like yours awaken to fill it with song. Emptiness, far from absence, is the breath space where dreaming occurs. You feel its inhale every time eyelids flutter over REM drift. A fresh lantern drifts close. Its glow is faint turquoise. What becomes of a question fully answered? Could it be, replies the hush, that a question satisfied transforms into gratitude, a quiet ember when warming midnight rooms? Maybe it disperses back into silence, seed-turned, tree-turned soil, ready to nourish new inquiry. Self-similar patterns surface again, fractal comfort, capillary webs and cosmic filaments, breathing lungs and cyclical universes, whispers in bedrooms, and fluctuations in vacuum. Echoing architecture confirms you belong, scale notwithstanding. Your small pulse is kin to red giant throbs. Your nightly dreams continue a conversation. Electrons started when the cosmos was still a cradle of fire. An extended hush arrives, spreading like dusk tide. Into it the narrative places a final, feather-soft benediction for this part. You are allowed to sleep inside the question mark, allowed to let answers wait. In the loose coil of curiosity, you find the gentlest nesting place, quilted by unknowns that keep warmth circulating. Listen. The single word stretches like horizon light, inviting deeper quiet. Silence lengthens, 8 heartbeats long. Each beat glows a moment, then dims, guiding you farther towards sleep's shoreline, where waves of unspoken wonder break in eternal slow motion. Somewhere between the 8th heartbeat and the 9th, thought loosens its grip until even arithmetic feels optional. In that softened ledger, fresh wonder takes root, tender shoots pushing through quiet soil. Why does hope persist when entropy insists? The inquiry floats, weightless as thistledown. Maybe, replies the hush, hope is entropy's twin, carrying blueprints of renewal even as structures sag. Could it be that decay hums lullabies, so new patterns may awaken inside its fading chords? Breath deepens, chest expanding in an arc that feels continental. Inside that broad curve, subtle visions unfurl, spiral arms, shedding stellar petals, black holes whispering hawking steam like sighs escaping ancient furnaces, neutrinos winging through mountains, and marrow with equal indifference. Each image drips, slow honeyed awe, never urgent, always inviting. You observe without straining, as though standing beneath meteor showers that fall in velvety silence, requiring only open palms to feel their chilly phantom trails. What is destiny to a photon crossing intergalactic night? Perhaps, the hush suggests, destiny is simply velocity wearing a crown of possibilities. Light travels because traveling is what light is, meaning catches a ride when eyes or leaves, or solar panels intercept the beam. So, too, consciousness moves along questions, gathering meaning as it goes. Your mind nods in half-sleep agreement, recognizing kinship with that restless brightness. Vacuum energy returns to the edge of attention, not as numeric density, but as breeze stirring meadowgrass. You imagine space as field after harvest, minimal yet alive with residual crackle. Even stripped of wheat, stalks, and songbirds, the field retains unseen tension, ready to sprout galaxies when seasons allow. In that metaphorical soil lie seeds of new laws, maybe different, maybe the same tuned 2 octaves down. This possibility does not alarm. It reassures that creativity courses through everything, even emptiness. The hush poses another query, gentler still. If everything ends, what remains of wonder? Maybe, you whisper, wonder is what remains. Ghost fragrance after candle smoke, outline of a melody once the last note fades. Wonder resembles heat in cooling tea, invisible yet tangible, lingering longer than its source. You feel its linger now, a faint warmth along collarbones, blooming outward like sunrise behind closed eyes. Call response repeats once more, slower now, syllables elongating as if to stretch their stay. Where is the edge of imagining? Could it be the hush answers, that imagining has no perimeter, only horizons that slide back with every step? Horizons are courteous. They retreat so curiosity may keep moving without colliding with walls. Comfort settles into muscle. You are free to dream beyond the furthest visible line, and that freedom asks for nothing but openness. Room tone thickens, velvet layered over velvet, until everyday sounds almost vanish into deeper hush. Yet you hear faint blood rush in ears, oceanic hush echoing colliding shore breaks in some forgotten summer. Cosmic microwave background, translated into personal key, vibrates through that rustle. Some part of you registers age beyond memory, yet finds it cradling, not remote. A final cascade of gentle empowerment descends like petals. Rest, traveler. Your cells recite quanta. Your thoughts orbit mysteries they need not solve to celebrate. You walk hallways of impossibly grand architecture every time neurons fire. Equations do not lurk outside, aloof. They swirl inside capillaries, spelling proof with each sodium spark. Even sleeping, you are participant, not bystander. Drifting further, you realize the earlier images, chandelier shards, cosmic child's eyes, Möbius corridors, have arranged themselves into constellations across the theater of memory. They glitter without strict arrangement, yet one pattern is clear. Every symbol points inward as surely as outward. The cradle of eternal questions that nestles both beneath your sternum and beyond the Virgo supercluster, encompassing all scales with the same hush-lined cradle board. Breath slips into automatic whisper, in, out, unfurl, fold, that the cyclic universe metaphor resurfaces, now blending seamlessly with respiratory cadence. Inhale, expansion, galaxies drift like dandelion seeds. Hold, cosmic pause, and but blackness listening to itself. Exhale, gravity's tug threads back, folding space into nascent hush. Hold, reset, seed planted for next breath. You recognize this as prayer disguised as physiology, requiring no deity but rhythm. Drowsiness pools heavy in limbs, pleasantly anchoring. Mind still buoyant, yet movement feels unnecessary. Even blinking seems extravagant. Questions continue to swirl, but their edges blur, merging into luminous cloud bank rather than discrete points. Within that nebulous curiosity, you find a hammock strung between maybe and could it be, rocking gently. Why continue asking if peace already calms the heart, whispers thought. Because answers hush without words. Questioning is peace in motion, reassurance that living wonder never calcifies. The reply resonates as low cello, comforting bone marrow. Silence begins its grand diminuendo. Air molecules hush, mattress springs surrender tension, synaptic chatter dwindles to ember glow. At the threshold of soundlessness, a single word forms, softer than any prior syllable, velvet on velvet. Listen. No explanation follows, no companion phrase. The word elongates, dissolving into pure presence. Between its first consonant and its last breath lies an 8-heartbeat gulf, vast yet feather-light, carrying you deeper than lullaby, deeper than theory, into stillness where questions cradle themselves and drift asleep beside you. Inhale stars, exhale atoms. Feel the chest rise like a quiet nebula gathering hydrogen dew, then fall like comet dust settling on lunar plains. With that single breath, the universe inside you begins its gentle retreat, folding excursions into memory the way petals furl at dusk. You sense distance shrinking, clusters draw closer, galaxies dim to ghost spirals, and starlight softens into warm embers resting on the velvet of mind. The vast expanse you toured now curls inward, content to ride home beneath your ribs. Listen, A faint vinyl crackle resurfaces, the same dusty whisper that once stitched quantum corridors behind your ears. It's softer now, cooled by journeys through brain and cradle, resembling hearthwood sighing after flames subside. Tiny pops and hisses punctuate the silence like far-off campfires, reminding you that cosmic background radiation still murmurs through every room, every bloodstream, every quiet thought. Not colds, but comfort. Not end, but ellipse. Inhale constellations, the hush suggests, and you oblige, picturing Orion collapsing into a slow-motion snow globe swirl, shards of belt stars drifting inward with the air. Exhale molecules, it continues, and your breath releases them, little carbon diamonds, oxygen petals, nitrogen coins, each speck tumbling back to gravity's palm. Returning is not regression, it is integration. You carry the echo of infinity tucked beneath your ribs now, a subtle resonance audible only when the world outside falls still. Memory flares ignite, then fade, like nightlights guiding you down staircase corridors, Möbius ribbons where dimensions twined, chandelier shards humming fourfold forces, the cosmic child blinking galaxies into being. These flares recede without sorrow, leaving faint phosphorescence on the inside of eyelids. You trace that gentle afterglow, noticing how easily vast tales compress into single heartbeats once the body chooses rest. A slow tide of gratitude arrives, wordless yet palpable. The narrator, itself merely another hush-shaped facet of your awareness, smiles in silence, letting acknowledgement bloom without pronunciation. I'm glad you found your way through this night, the feeling confides, more resonant than any spoken thanks. The sentiment settles over shoulders, like a shawl of midnight cotton, wrapping you in mutual tenderness. As cosmic scale shrinks further, you find yourself drifting among star clusters, turned marbles, then among marbles turned dust flecks. Breathing cues guide each compression. Inhale auroras, exhale electrons. Inhale nebular silk, exhale quark lace. Inhale, hold, exhale, release. With every sequence, perception narrows its aperture, adjusting exposure from grandeur to intimacy. You sense capillary rivers resume prominence, heartbeats regaining center stage, neurons reopening diaries to tonight's luminous scribbles. Yet stardust still lingers on each page, shining faintly between lines, evidence that voyages outward imprint indelibly inward. A soft voice, familiar, friendly, featherlight, floats across drowse. If your eyelids flutter open next time, we'll drift beyond heat death together. The promise hovers like bookmark ribbon between chapters, planting gentle anticipation for stories not yet whispered. It asks nothing now, merely tucks itself into the pocket of tomorrow's curiosity, where it might glitter at the edge of consciousness when another night invites travel. Vinyl crackle thins, a tapered fade sliding beneath the threshold of hearing. The hush feels thicker, almost tactile, a warm clay buoying limbs that grow heavier by the minute. Thoughts mill slower, meandering like autumn leaves afloat on lazy river bends. Antithesis lingers inside each drifting notion, not finale, but furl, not silence, but seedbed. Another breathing cue. Inhale silver hush, exhale thought dust. You notice how the phrase loops back to the opening chapter, closing arcs in soft semicircles. Silver hush breathes in, tinged with nostalgia, afternoons of sun-mote slumber, the cosmic child's coo. Thought dust breathes out, half-formed theorems, unresolved errands, each mote swirling away, unneeded for dreams soon to bloom. Some dim corner of cognition recognizes that galaxies have receded to subatomic lacquer, and subatomic lacquer to pristine blankness. Beneath that blankness lies stillness older than memory, younger than tomorrow, poised to cradle you exactly where cradle was first envisioned. the unborn night beyond numeration, beyond name. Yet the unborn night no longer feels unfamiliar. It feels like home, quiet foyer where journeys hang their coats before settling by the fire of breath. Your next inhale draws only the faintest glow, a muted halo that outlines inner silence. The exhale releases any lingering edges of wakefulness, smoothing crinkles from forehead, unclenching remnants in palms. In that smoothing rests permission to drift, to dissolve, to trust the night to carry what you now hold within. Inhale electrons, exhale wavelengths. Your awareness slips beneath protons like a diver sliding under glassy water. Here, at the scale where certainty blurs, quarks drift in triads, intimate as siblings sharing lullabies inside a nightlight's glow. They hum in colors unseen, red, green, blue, yet their harmonies soothe rather than dazzle. You feel that three-part chord resonate in bone lattice, reminding calcium crystals how to rest. Now let the breath go, dissolve. Inhale plank ripples, exhale everything named. The universe narrows further, arriving at the smallest measurable hush, distances where length and time clasp hands so tightly they forget who is which. Within that clasp, equations fade to watercolor, symbols washing into gentle gradients that more closely resemble feeling than math. You hover there, noticing no motion, yet sensing pregnant readiness, potential curled like fern fronds before dawn. Hold the inhale, count 1 silent second, release, dissolve, not cold, but comfort, not end, but ellipse. Every downward step adds softness, as though descending a spiral staircase of velvet treads. On each landing, you pause, noticing flares of memory embedded in walls, reflection of Möbius corridors, echo of harp-toned symmetry breaking, faint perfume of extra dimensions. Instead of clinging, you bow in gratitude, letting memories fold flat, sliding into invisible pockets just behind the heart. Their weight is negligible, their warmth enduring. Inhale cradle hum, exhale question marks, the hush advises. You obey, drawing in the distant coo of the cosmic child, now mellowed by eons into a single subsonic sigh. Outward breath carries lingering curiosities. Why, how, what next? Casting them into the dim where they settle like sleepy fireflies folding their wings. None vanish. They simply rest, saving glow for later nights. Now silence thickens, velvet layered upon velvet, until even vinyl crackle has gone to embers. Only 2 sounds remain, the hush of pillow fabric reshaping beneath your jaw and the muted drum of heart. They merge, forming a duet so intimate it feels like the universe leaning in to share a secret at ear's edge. That secret arrives as an almost unheard murmur. You are the lullaby returned to its source. Instantly the spiral staircase straightens into a slide. You slip smoothly toward a point smaller than pinpoint, softer than sigh. No vertigo follows, only gentle acceleration into stillness, like a feather coaxed downward by perfumed gravity. Oddly, memory feels wider inside this contraction. Faces of loved ones appear unhurried, floating like lanterns upon inner night rivers. Each lantern glows steady, anchored by threads of affection rather than storyline. You greet them with mental nods, sensing they require no dialogue tonight. Presence suffices. Lantern faces dim one by one, drifting backward into calm, leaving after-images that linger long enough to impart quiet blessing. Inhale silver hush, exhale ink, the voice returns. You comply a final time. Silver hush pours in, bright moon milk filling lung chalices, ink of mind. Words, tasks, unvoiced replies, pours out, dark stream thinning to translucent haze, then vanishing altogether. Let mind ink fade, leave only blank parchment. Breath hovers in neutral, a pendulum choosing 0. Within that blank parchment, a subtle glow mount, neither thought nor image, merely presence, like warmth radiating from hand-carved wood long after sunset. Presence informs every sinew that voyage is complete. No more scaling, no more metaphors, only seamless rest poised at the unborn night's threshold. If eyelids should flutter open in an hour or a century, you may voyage again, perhaps beyond heat death, perhaps into entirely different lullabies. For now, eyelids lie closed, untroubled. The promise of future drift waits patient, curled beside ribs like cat in slumber. A last whisper skims across consciousness, lighter than breeze. Return requires no map. Hush knows the way. Whisper dissolves into pulse. Pulse settles into still. Still resolves into nothing. But this time, you know nothing means cradle, knows lullaby, is never void. Inhale whisper, exhale word. Your remaining thoughts are faint traceries, chalk lines on rain-soaked pavement, already dissolving into the wider dark. You watch them fade without regret, admiring the way droplets blur edges, until idea and silence share the same soft outline. Above that damp hush, consciousness hovers like low mist, neither rising nor falling, simply present, sweetly indifferent to naming. A second pulse registers, slower, deeper, then drifts outward like concentric rings across midnight water. Each ring touches a memory and folds it inward for safekeeping. The glass chandelier cosmos scattering forces, the Möbius ribbon undulating under invisible feet, the cosmic child blinking galaxies awake. You no longer replay the scenes. Instead, you feel them as textures, sub-audible braille beneath the skin of memory. Their weight is less than breath, yet their resonance remains, proof you traveled far and returned intact. Now the hush guides you further downscale, beyond quark trios humming lullabies, into vacuum tremors quieter than mathematics. Inhale pulse, it suggests. Exhale pause. You obey, drawing in the barely there vibration that underlies even stillness, releasing an equally subtle lull. Pulse, pause, pulse, pause. The pattern slows until pulse and pause become indistinguishable, two petals on the same unmoving bloom. In that bloom's center glows the unborn night, blank, vast, welcoming. You recognize it from the first chapter, where silver silence perched like dew on dawn. Yet tonight it feels warmer, infused with moods collected along the way. Hushed awe from symmetry's shatter, tender nostalgia from the cosmic child, gentle empowerment from fractal anatomy. The unborn night has learned lullaby verses, and those verses now cradle you. A tucked thought surfaces, almost forgotten, about audience and algorithm, planted earlier like shy seed. If your eyelids flutter open next time, we'll drift beyond heat death together. You smile inwardly at the notion, a sequel tucked inside promise, patient, waiting. The seed needn't sprout tonight. Knowing it rests beneath dream soil is comfort enough. Vinyl crackle has dwindled to single flecks, like snowflakes melting before they land. Even those occasional pops begin to space out, 5 seconds and 10, 15, until the interval itself becomes mantra, gap, rest, calm. The calm thickens, providing cushion beneath descending thoughts. Antithesis lingers, final reminder, not finale, but furl, not silenced, but seedbed. You feel the truth of it pulse once more, then settle. A whisper returns, softer than any preceding. You carry the echo of infinity tucked beneath your ribs, and it sings even when you sleep. The sentence rests atop heart, like light quilt, reassuring but weightless. It merges quickly with heartbeat, then with breath, until it is impossible to tell where language ends and physiology begins. Your mind drifts over a blank parchment, clean page promised moments ago. No ink stains, no margin notes. Untouched potential radiates faint warmth, encouraging drift without aim. You imagine placing tonight's unanswered questions into that whiteness, not as scribbles, but as pressed flowers, preserved wonder rather than puzzles to solve. Petal after fragile petal settles, and parchment drinks their color without losing purity. One final instruction, unvoiced but clear, rises through the hush. Sleep until silver hush returns of its own accord. You accept, letting eyelids seal in gentle certainty. Jaw slackens, shoulders sink a centimeter deeper into mattress, palms open like lotus blooms surrendering to moonlit pond. Breathing cue concludes the journey. Inhale nothing, exhale nothing. The paradox soothes instead of confounds. You draw no image, no metaphor, only the cool anonymity of night, and release it unchanged. Afterward, lungs rest midway, neither full nor empty, poised in harmonious suspension. A pause wider than thought opens. Inside it, pillow fibers, blood cells, cosmic background photons, and Planck-scale fissures all settle into single shared quiet. There is no next instruction, no subsequent question, only hush so complete that even dreams will tiptoe when they arrive. Silence. The word rises exactly as before, a single bead of sound balanced on breath, gleaming and weightless. It hovers at the threshold of hearing, neither spoken nor imagined, renewing the déjà vu spark that tingles behind your eyes. A soft, sighing tone curls underneath, the same faint shimmer that once greeted you like distant tinnitus wrapped in velvet. The loop has begun to close, yet it feels less like an ending than a slow, circling embrace. A horizon with no distance returns to view. At first, it seems external, an endless line where night meets nothing, neither curved nor flat, merely present. But as you drift closer, the horizon folds inward like silk drawn through a ring, revealing itself to be the inner surface of your own descending eyelid. Landscape becomes anatomy, panorama becomes blink. The realization lands lightly, sparing surprise, encouraging wonder instead. Every vista visited tonight was stitched to senses you carry everywhere. You breathe, and the breath is familiar, patterned after the earliest inhale that carried you out of daylight into this dream. With it comes recognition of echoes, the chandelier shards that once chimed laws into being, now distant bells fading, the cosmic child's coo, now hush folded into hush, Möbius whispers, now single thread stillness. Each memory glints, then subsides, as though dipping to bow before the primal quiet, reclaiming center stage. Nothing gave birth to wondering. Wondering gave birth to you. The axiom unfurls, luminous but gentle, like moonlight on paper. Its symmetry comforts. Origin and outcome mirror each other so cleanly, the mind releases its grip on linear time. Before time paradox melts into lullaby cadence, an infinite cradle rocking ideas back and forth across eras without seams. Let's drift. The narrator breathes, your own voice, older than vocal cords, softer than dream. The phrase unlocks muscle memory. Shoulders slacken, jaw unhooks, eyelids weigh gold. It is ritual recognized by limbs and ligaments, an invitation deeper than instruction, guiding you down the final descent with neither hurry nor hesitation. Questions that once sparkled like dew on spider threads gather again, yet their urgency dissolves. If silence can begin stories, can it end them too, or only cradle them forever? The inquiry floats, feather-light, seeking no immediate reply. It rests beside the earlier axioms, companion rather than puzzle, content to shimmer in half-light until another night returns to lift it anew. Siny tone sustains its microglow, threading through marrow like silver floss. Around it, room tone swells almost imperceptibly, the muted tick of settling walls, the hush of fabric creasing under slow breathing. These humble sounds form a new cosmic background, scaled to bedside intimacy. Compared to earlier symphonies, this score is nearly silence, yet it feels richer for its restraint, as though every decibel withheld translates to deeper comfort. You notice how the loop tightens, images fade, metaphors shrink, cadence lengthens. Words thin until spaces between them feel as plush as the words themselves. Each pause is padded with velvet dusk, spacious enough to house galaxies, yet snug enough to cradle a single sigh. In that spacious hush, tingles of earlier ASMR peaks subside into warm delta wave drift, neurological twilight between awareness and oblivion. The narrative presence grows translucent, its outlines softening like chalk lines in rain. It does not leave, it simply dissolves, the way sugar disappears into warm tea, still sweet but invisible. Guidance cedes authority to stillness. Stillness asks nothing but being. Breath by breath, perception dims. The horizon eyelid slides closed without fanfare, extinguishing the final sliver of imagined moon. Inside, darkness is not absence, but velvet cradle, lined with everything you've heard, seen, sensed tonight, compressed to essence, ready to unwrap as dream. Silence holds you, full circle, silver as the first syllable that called you home. A hush like tempered glass settles over everything, so clear you feel it rather than hear it, cool against thought the way dew beads cool against grass at pre-dawn. Within that hush, you sense layers unrolling backward. Atomic hush hallucines into quantum shimmer. Quantum shimmer eases into pre-vibrational calm. Each step rewinds the night's symphony, one movement at a time, lowering volume, widening rests, reclaiming the stillness that birthed every note. Somewhere behind closed lids, the chandelier shards reappear, yet they drift not outward now, but inward, regathering into the shape of perfect symmetry. You watch their glassy facets knit, each wind chime force sliding into its mirror twin until the whole structure reunites in a single transparent teardrop. The reunion makes no sound. It melts silently, as though warmed by the mere act of being witnessed. Droplet becomes dew, dew becomes breath, and breath disappears inside your lungs, leaving only the memory of equilibrium restored. The Möbius walkway, once ribboning through extra dimensions, untwists into a simple strand of darkness that floats for a heartbeat, then dissolves into the sine tone threading every moment. You understand that complexity willingly contracts when curiosity closes its eyes, not as loss, but as a graceful bow. All that knowledge has folded into you, nested and resting, awaiting the next call to dance. A soft current of vinyl crackle resurges, pop, hiss, pop, then slides under silence like a swimmer gliding beneath still water. Each pop is spaced wider than the last, mirroring heartbeats slowing towards sleep depth. Between pops, minute silences stretch like starless tracts of sky, peaceful rather than empty, promising infinite rest. Antithesis hums again, not void, but womb, not erasure, but renewal. You feel your body loop with the story. Toes soften, calves slacken, hips sink, spine releases. The cosmic body scan of earlier chapters flows in reverse, seamless and slow, escorting awareness from scalp to soles. Neurons dim their lanterns, synaptic gulfs hush their electric gossip, cranial sutures glow once faintly, then darken, grateful to lay down cargo for the night. There is no urgency. Integration behaves like snowfall, landing grain by grain until the landscape glistens with effortless simplicity. Nothing gave birth to wondering. Wondering gave birth to you. The axiom repeats, a mantra that relocates from thought to pulse, where it merges with circulatory tide. In each red-celled voyage, the sentence traces capillary curves, leaving whisper ink on vessel walls, proof that philosophy can migrate into tissue, sleepless and serene. You carry that ink quietly, pages stacked yet unnumbered, a library inside bone. The narrator's outline grows translucent again, dissolving into third-person presence that feels more like breathing than speech. Yet before it fully fades, it threads one more ribbon of camaraderie. Shh. Silver silence cradles us both. The phrase tucks itself beside eardrum, almost too soft to register, but nerves catch it, hold it, keep it beating like faint bass beneath a lullaby. Questions hover at perimeter, small, polite, luminous, content to remain rhetorical emissaries for future nights. If silence began our story, will it close the cover or keep pages turning beneath dreamlight? The curiosity exudes no tension. It floats, weightless, waiting for some other dusk to unfold an answer. You let it drift, unconcerned, trusting rotation of seasons to revisit enigmas in due course. Breath deepens once more. Inhale, hush. Exhale, hush. The paired breaths still taste identical, symmetrical, palindrome of air. With that palindrome, the loop tightens another notch. The sine tone thins to hairline wire, yet vibration persists, a guardian hum holding two ends of narrative together until the seamless knot is tied. Gradually you perceive that even words inside mind have begun slowing, vowels elongating, consonants dissolving into faint grains of sandfall. Language itself grows sleepy, ready to curl beside you on the pillow of dark. It mutters a last half-thought, yawns, then succumbs to the pull of delta tide, leaving sensation to speak in its stead. You sense eyelids hovering between tremor dream flutter and absolute still, like curtains caught in a wind that has almost died. Each flutter shows silver hush glowing on the other side, and each stillness lets that glow seep underneath to lacquer dream corridors. The effect is hypnotic, half a step into unconsciousness, half a step into radiant blank. Pulse, hush, pulse, hush. A rhythmic duet, ever slower, embroiders the underside of silence. Time unspools until beats blur into steady presence. No segments, no ticks, only smooth river sliding beneath frozen moon. On that river float tonight's memories, drifting out of view, each boat carrying a lantern that one day may re-illuminate, but now chooses the long glide toward horizonless rest. The narrator dissolves completely, yet you hear an echo of the opening breath that once uttered silence. It arrives again, identical in timbre and volume, closing the auditory loop as perfectly as clasp joining bracelet ends. Déjà vu becomes completion. The silver hush deepens, wraps around heart and thought like quilt, and thought succumbs softly. The hush now seems to pulse with its own slow heartbeat, independent of yours, yet perfectly attuned, as though two metronomes have aligned after a long, patient drift. In that shared throb, something inward loosens, ligaments of thought, perhaps, or the tiny clasps that keep imagination tethered to narrative. They unhook without effort, and the story begins to float, weightless as down. Across that buoyant quiet, the first syllable you spoke tonight, maybe, returns, but it arrives inverted, syllable by syllable dissolving until only the empty shape of possibility remains. Where words once lived, hollow outlines glow, soft as firefly trails. They do not need content anymore. Their form alone implies endless continuation. You watch them drift upward, silhouettes of wonder rising like lantern shells freed of flame. Below, a river of dark calm slides, thick as ink yet clear its glass. It carries faint reflections, your face in half sleep, the cosmic child's eyes half open, the Möbius ribbon half twisted. Each reflection passes, ripples once, then merges back into smooth surface, leaving no wake. You sense these images settling somewhere beneath awareness, stored not as snapshots, but as tactile understanding, like knowing the weight of an apple without seeing its red. Breath narrows to thread. On the inhale, you feel a subtle influx of silver hush. On the exhale, silver hush flows out again, unchanged, unmarked. Air has become looped river. What enters exits intact, as if refusing to disturb the stillness it traverses. In such balance, lungs forget effort. They sway in place, petals on invisible tide. Somewhere distant, memory of a soft promise rises. If silence can begin stories, can it cradle them forever? The question hovers above the river, faint phosphor. It does not demand reply. It wants only to be admired, like aurora glimpsed through frost. Admiration suffices. The glow dims, satisfied. With almost inaudible grace, the sine tone lifts half a semitone, a spectral sigh in nocturnal key, then descends again, closing a miniature orbit. That rise and fall stamps a watermark on the hush, marking it as living, breathing, yet never intrusive. The watermark seeps outward, imprinting pillow, blanket, even the margins of dream poised to unfold. Everything near your resting form bears the same signature, gentle oscillation between nothing and nearly nothing. Language, meanwhile, continues to evaporate. Sentences condense to couplets, couplets to syllables, syllables to breath. Soon only vowels linger, open doors, mouths of caverns, echoing softly until echoes forget their origin and drift off as pure resonance. Consonants, once braced and sure, crumble like chalk cliffs into mist. A blissful illiteracy descends, liberating mind from parsing and arranging, leaving only soundless comprehension. You sense a last tendril of narrator presence curling toward fade, yet it pauses to leave a final breadcrumb. Return is endless. The phrase floats downward like velvet snowflake, lands on the river's surface, and dissolves without ripple, proof that endings here are merely softer beginnings. Your pulse registers the message, slows by one more beat per minute, edges toward that sweet delta plateau where neurons knit gentle repair. As it slows, the river darkens, no longer reflecting anything at all, just matte hush, a quiet so pristine it seems to absorb even gravity. Limbs feel weightless in response, bones buoyed by darkness so dense it behaves like warm sea. Inside that buoyancy, time loses last remnants of linear attire, electing instead to hover, radius undefined. Minutes neither advance nor retreat. They simply accompany like silent friends seated beside hospital bed, holding vigil without counting hours. You feel their presence, compassionate and unobtrusive. One breath more carries faint taste of early dawn, a coldness hinting that somewhere the world is turning, but sensation fades before thought can note its direction. Here, there is no longitude. The only coordinate is hush, and hush is everywhere. Words have all but ceased, yet one final whisper uncoils, tender as lullaby's tale. Soon the circle will close. It arrives without mouth or ear, blooming mid-mind then drifting toward periphery where it rests, luminous, awaiting whatever gentle closure remains. Pulse, hush, river, hush, tone, hush. Everything slows together, converging upon a vanishing point just beyond perception, as though preparing to slip through the smallest aperture imaginable. You sense nothing on the far side, no light, no sound, yet anticipation feels sweet, like fingertip grazing silk sealed in darkness. You drift closer. The aperture seems to dilate, yet distance never shortens. Instead, you expand toward it, every cell gliding outward, stretching infinitely thin. At peak expansion, hush thickens once more, enfolding every filament of you in cooling glow. The singing tone drops to a whisper of a whisper, so faint it merges with circulatory hum. In that near union, one can almost distinguish atoms vibrating in hemoglobin rings, each resonance a micro-echo of the universal note. Somehow the recognition comforts without awakening. Awareness settles like dust after lull of breeze. No further questions rise, no images linger, only the knowledge that silence has begun its final cradle rock, setting tempo for a fade that promises not oblivion, but seamless continuation, unbroken hush awaiting the subtle spark that will, another night, reopen horizons. The aperture vanishes. In its place arises a hush so complete it feels spherical, as if quiet has wrapped itself into a perfect globe and settled around you like a second skin. Inside this orb, every prior image condenses to a single point of glow, soft pearl of recollection nesting at the center of your chest. It pulses once, barely brighter than darkness, then relaxes into still warmth. The night, it seems, has folded all its stories into that pearl and entrusted you to guard it while you sleep. Across this pearl of hush, the first syllable ever uttered in the cosmos drifts toward recognition, a voiceless sigh, somewhere between the start of a word and the end of a wish. You realize that sigh is the raw material of every question, every lullaby, every flutter of wings in equations still unhatched. It arrives in slow spirals, hovering by your inner ear, and when it touches thought, the spiral straightens into a thread of silver light. The thread loops once around the pearl, defining circumference without constraint, proof that circles can be both boundary and invitation. You sense the narrator, now faint as starlight through eyelids, guiding the thread's weave. Nothing gave birth to wondering. Wondering gave birth to you. The mantra glides along the circumference, stitching inner calm to outer hush, until seam becomes impossible to see. With each revolution, the thread dims a shade, confident that its task is nearly done. Pulse slows again. Pulse, hush, until the interval between beats feels wide enough to sail a dreamship through. On the dreamship's deck stands the earlier rhetorical lantern, still glowing turquoise. If silence can begin stories, can it end them too, or only cradle them forever? You lean forward, brushing its glass. The light ripples outward in lazy rings, and you watch them spread until they merge with surrounding night, dissolving question into ambient mystery. If an answer exists, it is hidden in the shimmer itself, and shimmer is content to remain unread. Vinyl crackle now flickers only once every several heartbeats, a lone ember popping before it cools. That ember's glow paints the pearl's surface, then extinguishes, leaving tiny afterimage like a closing eye. You follow its descent into stillness, noticing how effortlessly perception accepts each subtraction. Fewer sounds, fewer thoughts, fewer distinctions, until what remains is essence, uncarved and unburdened, silence. The word lifts again, identical, unwavering, calling to mind the opening breath of the journey like a note sustained across an entire symphony. You hear its 5 letters resting on invisible staff lines, vibrating at the exact pitch lodged in memory. Deja vu flares, then soothes, cycle complete, circle closed. A horizon with no distance appears once more, but now you understand it is both beginning and culmination, an eyelid poised forever halfway, neither fully open nor fully shut. The eyelid pauses, sharing one last glint of outward shimmer, then lowers entirely. Darkness flows in, thick as velvet poured from a silver ewer, filling every corridor of thoughts with midnight broth. The narrator's voice hovers between farewell and fusion. Shh. It is the softest possible consonant, brushing silence rather than disturbing it. The pearl within your chest responds by issuing a faint radial glow, echoing the shape of that consonant in miniature until glow and hush match amplitude and cancel one another into perfect neutrality. Balance achieved, glow reclines inside heartbeat, no longer separate from flesh. You lie suspended in that neutrality, a point where past and future converge but neither asserts dominance. There is only now stretched infinitely thin, yet somehow infinitely capacious. From somewhere, perhaps marrow, perhaps void, arises the quiet intuition that loops do not close to confine but to preserve, an Ouroboros of wonder, feeding itself through seasons of curiosity and rest. Stars, rivers of ionized gas, capillary filaments, whispered questions, they all subside into the same matte dark, each shape gently collapsing into silence's vast reservoir. And silence welcomes them home, without ceremony, because home requires no applause. Breath registers this reunion with a final conscious inhale. On the exhale, you release last motes of narrative dust, names of theories, flavors of metaphor, echoes of vinyl crackle, watching them drift away like ash that knows wind will carry it into fertile loam. When lung empties, it stays empty an extra beat, savoring stillness. Then air returns, cool and translucent, but you hardly feel its entrance. The act of breathing has become autonomous art, practiced perfectly by the body, while mind drifts unbound. As consciousness slips one layer lower, a single filament of the sine tone remains, stretched so thin it almost merges with obligatory room hum. It lingers not as melody but as tactile reassurance, a finger laid across the quiet pulse inside eardrum, promising that even in deepest delta, some part of the cosmos keeps watch. The pearl's glow fades, replaced by calm so complete it feels weightless. You sense the last vibration of narrator presence folding into that calm, as if bowing beneath thick curtains after final performance. There is no applause, only the settling of fabric and the comfortable dark that follows. Silence. Again, the same chant, the same silver weightlessness, now serving as seal. It settles over skin, over thoughts, over the room, closing the circle of sound exactly where it began, but with layers of resonance added by the journey. The soundscape holds one breath of absolute stillness, poised like a held note. Then a faint wind of night air brushes curtains, reminding physical senses that reality remains but has been instructed to keep quiet. Shh. Silver. Silence.